Hi, folks. Welcome back to the Contrarians. This is an awesome panel discussion we have for you today. It's another episode in our Dark Horse album series. That's where we pick an album from a band and we kind of go through. Each of us will give our little opinion on the album. We'll rate it out of 10. We'll give you an average rating and we'll tell you kind of where we lie on the album. And they're usually Dark Horse albums or polarizing albums where some people love them, some people hate them, some people are in the middle. So for today, by the way, if anybody wants to join these conversations, join us over at Patreon, and any tier will get you in on these panel discussions. We also have a Ko-Fi if you want to support the channel without having to subscribe on a monthly basis. We also have t-shirts, and everybody here has cool stuff to plug. And at the end of the episode, I'll go around and let everybody give a little plug to whatever they're working on. Today, we're talking about Aerosmith, and we're going with the album Done with Mirrors, which came out in 1985, which was the first album that they recorded when they had reunited with Joe Perry and the original group got back together. I have a little bit of research I'm going to go through, and then I'll go around and get everybody's take on it. By the way, how's everybody doing?
Great.
Yeah, fine.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Got some Aerosmith.
Awesome. All right. Let me go through my research here. So bear with me, be patient. I got quite a bit of stuff here, but it's going to give us a nice little view of where this album lies. Okay, so Done with Mirrors was the lowest charting album since Get Your Wings. Done with Mirrors was certified gold, along with Rockin' the Hard Place, which also certified gold. Every other album before at least certified platinum, and every album after certified at least platinum, up until Honkin' on Bobo. Done with Mirrors had 4 singles. None of them charted in the US, according to Wikipedia. Loudwire, in their ranking of the albums, put Done with Mirrors at number 10, and they suggested Done with Mirrors was to serve as Aerosmith's triumphant rebound from the chemical, creative, and personal doldrums surrounding the Rockin' a Hard Place era. But the reunited original quintet forgot one crucial ingredient: truly memorable songs. So while there's certainly nothing too embarrassing to be found on this LP, it's fair to say that the mediocrity ruled the day after all. The best song was Joe Perry's re-recorded solo single, Let the Music Do the Talking. Their last placed album was Just Push Play, and their first placed album was Rocks. Rolling Stone's Readers Poll had a top 10. Their number 7 was Done with Mirrors. Let the Music Do the Talking and Sheila were minor rock hits, but the album mostly stiffed, and today many in the group say it's one of their weakest efforts. Still, it paved the way for a remarkable comeback that truly began the next year. Number 1 was Toys in the Attic. Ultimate Classic Rock had Done with Mirrors at number 8. Don't let anybody tell you that Aerosmith's comeback started anywhere else but here. In a better world, this gloriously shambling collection of underrated gems would have brought them back to the top without synthesizers or outside writers. Number 15 was 9 Lives, and number 1 was Toys in the Attic. Rate Your Music had Done with Mirrors at number 9. Aerosmith reformed and managed to craft their finest record since Rocks. Done with Mirrors is so successful simply because it is powered by the same smart lyrics and filthy guitars that had formed the core of their greatest tracks throughout the 70s. The unapologetic, no messing around approach to hook-filled, explosive tracks like the killer opener, Let the Music Do the Talking, My Fist, Your Face, Gypsy Boots, She's on Fire. The album is not without its share of filler, but the album marks the beginning of such a remarkable comeback for Aerosmith. Best ever albums had Done with Mirrors at number 13. Number 1 was Toys. According to Setlist FM, Done with Mirrors was their 13th most represented album live, and Let the Music Do the Talking was their most represented song that they played live from Done with Mirrors. Number 1 was Toys in the Attic. Oh Yeah, Ultimate Aerosmith Hits is a triple platinum selling double disc best of compilation album that contains no tracks from Done with Mirrors, but it includes stuff from Just Push Play, 9 Lives, the early albums, pretty much their whole career, other than that little era of Done with Mirrors and the album that came out before it. Here's a couple of quick quotes that Joe actually sent me from some of the band members. So thanks, Joe. Brad Whitford says, Templeman was one of my favorite producers because of the Montrose album. Joe Perry says, on Done with Mirrors, we tried to be honest and play basic riffs that were really good but never got finished. I thought My Fist, Your Face, and Sheila were pretty good. 2 weeks before the record was supposed to be remastered or mastered, Steven still was in the hotel trying to write lyrics. We thought we did our best under pressure, but I can't listen to Done with Mirrors. John Kalodner, they delivered the record, when I realized the only good song was Let the Music Do the Talking, an old Joe Perry song, I knew we were in trouble. The album only sold 400,000, way below expectations. Tom Hamilton says, we got there and Ted Templeman basically had us do everything in one take. We were just using the first day takes and slapping them down on tape. So thanks for bearing with me through all that research. I hope some of that might help form some more opinions as we go along and give you an idea of where this kind of ranks in the catalog. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to throw it over to you folks now so you can tell me if you're for, against this album and what you rate it out of 10. So why don't we start with Joe? Since you took us home last episode, why don't you start us off this episode?
Well, thanks. Well, Aerosmith is one of my two gateway bands. Rocks is perhaps the greatest album of all time. So I was hooked from there on. And I've seen them 30 times live, including the Super Bowl with Britney Spears and NSYNC. Met Joe Perry a couple times. When Done with Mirrors came out, actually, I enjoyed the Rockin' the Hard Place. I thought that was a really good album. But Steven Tyler was a mess. Joe Perry was a mess. I saw Joe Perry Project a few times. You know, the band broke up famously over spilt milk in that show in Cleveland, and Joe Perry and Brad Whitford would leave the band. So when I heard they were getting back together and I saw them in the back in the Saddle Tour in 1984, I was excited. But the band was a mess physically and financially going into Done with Mirrors. Now that we know, you know, the true story, read their biography and everything, and going through the quotes you just talked about. So with Done with Mirrors, the first thing really rubbed me the wrong way is the first song, they ruined a great Joe Perry's Project song. Because Let the Music Do the Talking by Joe Perry Project is awesome. On this album, I just think it's incredibly lame. My Fist Your Face is a pretty good song. Shame on You, pretty good. Sheila's all right. Reason a Dog is kind of resonated with me because my girlfriend in college, I actually had a crush on her older sister. So Steven continually talks about his girlfriend's older sister in the song, so I like that. But Gypsy Boots, She's on Fire, The Hop, Darkness, it does sound like it was all slapped together, almost demo-ish. Unlike Ted Templeman's other works, it's not, you know, up there with Montrose, the Van Halen's. So it was really disappointing to me when they released this album. I probably have to give it a 6 out of 10. I can see where they're going, you know, and they have some of the slide guitar and everything that would appear on subsequent follow-up albums. And of course, they would go on with Run DMC and then in the Superstardom with Permanent Vacation, Pump, and Get a Grip. But at this point, it was just a band. They were getting back together. They were a mess financially. They were a mess physically. They didn't clean up yet in either respect. And they were just putting something out. So it was a great step forward. I was happy that the band was back together, but I thought it was pretty weak, a pretty weak recording when it came out. So I give it a 6 out of 10.
Hey,
Thanks, Joe.
what you got for 6?
Tim, take it away.
So this album was actually when I first became aware of Aerosmith. So I was born in 74, and a lot of kids my age, the first exposure they ever had to Aerosmith was Run DMC doing Walk This Way with Steven and Joe. But the first song I actually heard from Aerosmith was Let the Music Do the Talking, because it was one of the videos I saw on the very first night that I realized we had Much Music, Canada's MTV, in my little town of Woodstock, New Brunswick. And I basically sat in front of the television and watched like 4 hours worth of videos, and that was one of them. And I always liked that video with the kids sneaking into the concert and recording it. Yeah, as has been mentioned before, okay, so I'll back up or something. I always liked it. I've never had a problem with it. But what's really cool is that when I got into Aerosmith proper in the next 2 or 3 years, again, pre-internet, I had no idea that Joe or Brad did anything between 1979 and 1985. I had no idea they did anything. So I was really surprised when I came across this album on cassette. So this is the first Joe Perry Project album, and it's called Let the Music Do the Talking. It's from 1980. Really good album. Steven had been on the vocals. It could have been a great Aerosmith album. It's a great album on its own. And because I was used to the Aerosmith version, I was like, oh, this is cool. And I put it on, and the verse comes in, and the verses are totally different phrasing. About the only thing the same is the music and the chorus. But I like Aerosmith's version just fine. I don't think there's anything lame about it. I love the production of Done with Mirrors. I think Ted Templeman kind of did the Van Halen thing. He just recorded them live. It worked with Van Halen. And I can see where the Aerosmith guys would think it was unfinished, but to me, it makes for an album that doesn't make me want to gag. Let's put it this way. So, and I'm not even talking about Angel and What It Takes and those types of poppy songs. I'm talking about I Don't Want to Miss a Thing and the whole Just Push Play album, and just really most of what followed, really about half a Get a Grip and most of whatever came out after. I think Done with Mirrors is a kind of a good bridge album between the old and the new. There isn't anything particularly poppy sounding on it, but on the other hand, it doesn't sound like a group from, that's kind of dragging along, riding on their coattails. There's some cool riffs on it. I think Steven's got some great lyrics. I don't know how well some of them aged, particularly in My Fist Your Face, but that happens. And I just always really enjoyed the album. There are a few things that I don't care for about it. For one thing, they've got one of the coolest logos in rock, and they don't use it. And the whole Done with Mirrors concept gets really old really fast when you have to hold it up to a mirror to read everything. So obviously that's the vinyl. Before we started taping, someone asked if there was a version that wasn't in reverse, and there is. But the thing that I think is interesting about this is that everything on this is backwards except the serial number and the barcode. Because I suppose you can't scan a barcode backwards. But this is a later reissue where everything's frontwards and legible. So I guess, I don't know when this would have come out, but I guess after a while they just said, enough with the joke already. This is also one of the first albums I can think of where there was a track that wasn't on the album, that was on the cassette and the CD. Great song, I think, song called Darkness with the piano melody that kind of reminds me of what Steven played on Lord of the Thighs. I guess it might not be the first. Deep Purple, Perfect Strangers also had the song Not Responsible that wasn't on the vinyl. But I read a lot about the making of this book in Greg Renoff's Ted Templeman book, which is quite good. And yeah, I don't think they could have gotten a hit. It just wasn't their time yet. Their comeback just wasn't quite ready yet. But I don't think there's anything to be embarrassed about with Done with Mirrors. It's kind of sad. It took about 8 years to go gold. It never certified platinum. And they have albums that are platinum and multi-platinum that didn't even deserve to get out of the factory. So I'm a big fan of Done with Mirrors. I would give it, I'd give it a solid 8. I'll stand behind that.
All right. Down for an 8.
Thanks, Tim.
Nice.
Let's go with Ryan next.
Hey guys. So I'm going to agree with a lot of what Tim said what Tim said on this one. I really like this album a lot. It's not an album of theirs that I've had as much experience with as others like Rocks or Draw the Line. Draw the Line's actually my favorite Aerosmith album by far. I've heard this one probably a couple years now, and listening to it a few times again over the last week, I kind of compared it a lot to Draw the Line and see like what things I love about that album are on here. And the truth is none of what I love about Draw the Line is on this album, but I think that this is a very good album in its own right. So let the music do the talking. I like the original version of that song a lot too, but I also think this one's awesome. I think it rocks pretty hard. Steven sounds very good on the song. I mean, I think that I've kind of fantasized myself of hearing that album, Let the Music Do the Talking, with Steven's vocals on it. I think that would be awesome. Just because, I mean, Joe Perry does a lot of vocals on there. And I think he has a good voice, but Steven is just way better in my opinion as a singer. So I thought that'd always be pretty cool. And I think that this version sounds really good too. I think the production overall sounds awesome on this album. I mean, it's not Jack Douglas, like he's one of my favorite producers of all time, but I think he gets a really good sound on here. Fist Your Face is a pretty cool song, pretty heavy. Shame on You, I actually really like a lot. That one and She's on Fire are interesting tracks to me. It's like the drum beats and some of the riffing and even Steven's vocals kind of sound like what Led Zeppelin would have sounded like in the 80s. I hear that a lot, especially on She's on Fire with that drum groove and the slide guitar and just the melody overall. It just sounds a lot like Zeppelin. So I think that's pretty cool. The Reason a Dog is a neat track. It kind of goes into a little bit more of like a mellow, more moody type tone. And it reminds me of something you'd hear on an album like Rocks, like a more modernized version or something like that, or even kind of like softer verse of Kings and Queens, something like that. I dig that song a lot. Shayla's a pretty cool song. Gypsy Boots I like a lot. Like I said, I love She's on Fire. The Hop is okay. And then I also think Darkness is a really good track too. So I think it's a good sounding album. It's pretty heavy. But at the same time, it has a good like pop accessibility to it too in the production and in the songwriting. I agree that it's kind of like a bridge album between old Aerosmith and newer stuff. But this actually is the last album by the band that I really enjoy. I don't like Permanent Vacation very much, aside from a few tracks, and from there on I don't really care about any other albums. So yeah, I think it's a cool album. It's not the best that they did, but it's a very valiant effort. It's well produced, good songs on it. Steven sounds pretty good the entire time. I mean, his voice sounds strained on a couple of the tracks, but not bad at all. And it's nice to have Joe Perry back on it. There's a lot of great riffs, great rhythm section throughout. I'd say that I'd probably also give the album like an 8 out of 10. I think it's very solid. And that's like with me giving albums like Draw the Line, Rocks, Get Your Wings, a 10 out of 10, and then Toys at the Attic, like a 9. I'd say it's up there in quality, but not quite at that level of material.
Okay, cool.
Thanks,
8.
Ryan.
All right.
Andy, take it away, Andy.
Okay, thank you. I've always loved this album. I never had to warm up to it. It wasn't a grower. It just always hit me in the gut and was viscerally satisfying right from the get-go. I had not heard the Joe Perry Project version of Let the Music Do the Talking, so there were no disappointments on my end. That to me was just a banger straight out of the gate as an Aerosmith song. So I've always just had an affection for this album. It's sort of no nonsense Aerosmith. It's particularly heavy. It sounds unsupervised. It sort of sounds like, you just set these five guys up in a room and stick some mics in front of them. And this is what happens. Like no, string sections or horn sections or, adornments that are brought in by producers and that kind of thing. And I think that this is the last time that you hear Aerosmith with that sense of danger. Like, the thing I love about their 70s albums is that they were clearly operating at this really high level as players and writers. And they were also kind of dancing with the devil. And there's a lot of like really sort of questionable hobbies going on there. And, I think Steven Tyler in one of those documentaries, like Behind the Music or something, said it was days full of night. And it sounds like that in those 70s records. It sounds like, There's that kind of intangible quality of decadence and sleaze. And I think that, like the albums they made after Done with Mirrors, like in the late 80s with the producers and the song doctors and stuff, I think the songs are better, frankly, like overall. I think the production is better, but the danger is gone. It's like these guys are cleaned up. They have yoga mats. They have trainers. They're drinking bottled water. They have like song doctors and producers and like committees of people that are, behind the cause. And they launched this amazing comeback. But I kind of like hearing this little detour where they didn't really have their shit together yet. It still sounds dangerous. These guys are such great musicians and they have such a great bond as a band that even on these kind of underwritten songs, like probably my favorite one is Shame on You, which is barely a song. It's just this riff and they kind of have an A section and a B section and they just keep looping it back around. And it's so fucking rad. Like the funk in it is just filthy. The guitar sounds are like almost grunge. And it's just there's just so little to complain about here. I think that I think the first half is a little stronger. Reason a Dog has always been like strangely affecting to me. I'm not sure why. It's got a melancholy quality to it, and it's one of those tracks that feels like it wasn't finished. There's kind of like an instrumental section in there where maybe there should be a guitar solo, but nothing really happens. But there's kind of like an icy kind of I don't know, melancholia in that particular song. There's a little bit of synthesizer in there that kind of like is maybe the only departure from this just straight up drums, bass, and guitar kind of onslaught of the album. So yeah, I would say that I think that this band has written much better songs, but I think that these songs are good. I love just hearing the chemistry of these five guys in a room together without a lot of sort of accoutrements. So I would say I'm going to give this one just because I have so much personal affection for it. I'm going to give it a 7. I would say if just for a newcomer checking out Aerosmith for the first time, I would say take your time getting to Done with Mirrors. I'd say, make sure you hear Rocks and Draw the Line and, there's classic 70s ones and maybe even Pump, frankly. But for me, I come back to this album more than any of the other ones. It has that dark horse quality of it's just yours. Like, you don't have to share it with anyone. You don't hear My Fist Your Face on the radio or in bars or anything. So for me, it's a 7. I don't know. If I were writing a consumer guide, I might rank it down another peg, but I'm giving it a 7. That's my final ranking.
Nice. Well put. That's awesome.
Nick, you're next.
Thanks, Margo. My feelings and experience with this album is not unlike Andy's. I was a teenager when this came out. I was all fired up because I got to get my first Aerosmith album because they hadn't released anything in a while. So I came of age as a teenager when this thing was released. I took to it immediately, started learning songs off it. Within 4 or 5 months, I was in a garage band that had played Let the Music Do the Talking. We had played it live. So I really liked it. I had actually heard the Joe Perry version live at the first concert I ever attended, but I didn't have the album, didn't really remember it, but I really liked the song. So for me, it was sort of a moment in time where I really liked it. It was our Aerosmith album. And not unlike some of the people that have already spoken, that I feel there's like 5 or 6 really solid tracks, 3 or 4 less solid, but they're more incomplete, more jams, but not horrific. So I think there's some stellar things out there. The band may not like the album as much, but this is the band that's also been churning things out for the last 30 years that I really don't understand or get. And I jumped off the bandwagon, and I had seen them not only on this tour, but 3 times on the Permanent Vacation tour. So I don't get it. And this is also the band that thought Honkin' with Bobo was a good idea. So if they ranked it low, I mean, okay, that's fine. But I think it is a good album. I think it is heavy, and it's got some value there. I think Joey Kramer sounds fantastic on this album. I think the drums sound, for me, I just like everything, how it was recorded. So I'm a big fan of the drums of this album and the riffs. I did a little searching. I'd seen this tour when it came through, and this may sound like deja vu because of a video we did last night. But I saw them at the Stabler Arena in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, with Ted Nugent opening up, and they were absolutely on fire. They had a long set list. I took a look at online the set list from the day before and the day after because they didn't have the Bethlehem set list printed, but I think it's the same. They played 6 songs off this album, which is really unheard of. And then oddly enough, they didn't play Reason a Dog, which I love that song. But they did 6 of the tracks off the album. And I remember it went down well. So it was a sort of a barn burner show, and it was fantastic. Let the music do the talking reminds me, I think Martin needs to trademark this saying, but blues done right. Got the slide guitar work on there, and it's heavy, and that to me is blues done right. Also, She's on Fire is another blues done right album, song, as well as both songs have, and I know Martin's a huge fan of good slide guitar, but it's got good slide guitar in both songs. But She's on Fire would have been a great song for Honkin' on Bobo. That's what they should have done with Honkin' on Bobo. That would have been a great blues type track. But there are some great riffs on this album. I like Darkness. I like a piano-led jam with Darkness, and even though it was an extra track, I had purchased this on cassette actually at the time, so that for me was part of the album. If anything, the album was 35 minutes. It was a bit short, maybe they needed another song thrown on there, but this was probably the best they can do at the time. So I for one have always liked this album. If I was going to rate it, I look back fondly on it, on this album, I would rate it about a 7 as well.
Nice. All right, well argued.
Let's go with Peter next.
All right, thanks. Well, the thing I like about these Dark Horse albums is that some of these CDs have been hibernating in my CD collection for like years, and I haven't literally heard this CD in about 30 years, and I've been playing it all week, and it's a real sleeper. Aerosmith, to me, the things that I like is the grit, the groove, and the hooks. And I think this album has definitely the grit. There's a lot of groove. The hooks, you've got to listen to it about 3 or 4 times, 5, and they start to seep in. I think it was an album that was probably very much out of time. It was a 70s LP that was recorded in 1985. It's very 1970s sounding. It's very organic. It's very raw. I know Ted Templeton when he was recording it with the band, he literally didn't put the red light on when they were recording because Aerosmith historically always said that they got the jitters. As soon as the red light went up in the recording studio, they would fluff it. They wouldn't do as the best take that they could possibly do. So Ted Templeton tried to beat the jitters by just not putting the red light on and just recording it live and organically. And that's why it's got a lot of that sort of raw, rough around the edges feel to it. And I think that's part of its charm. It's very much an end of an era. So I think all the albums after this that everyone on this call has said, it went into that polish, Diane Warren, shiny production. I mean, this album is just organic. It's just the instruments. So there's no didgeridoos, no horns, no glossy power ballads. It's just stripped back. And that's what I like about it. So just going through the songs, Let the Music Do the Talking. I think that's a great opener. It's a raw guitar sound to it. I think it's really, really good. It's got a bit of a swagger and groove. The only thing I don't like about the song is it's got the worst fade out. Like at 3:06, the song finishes. There's no gradual fade out. My Fist Your Face, that's got a Stonesy feel, and a lot of the lyrics sort of refer, I think some of the lyrics refer to Back in the Saddle. This is a very sort of going back, referencing the 70s sort of album. Shame on You, I think that's a classic. It's been in my head all this week, and I'm thinking it's a Zeppelin workout, but gee, I was thinking, imagine what a Robert Plant or a David Coverdale could do with that riff. Ooh. The Reason a Dog, I think that's okay. It feels a little unfinished. It's a mid-tempo rocker that would probably go well on Pump or Permanent Vacation. Sheila, that's musically much better than the song deserves. I think there's some great dueling guitar work. And I think a lot of the criticisms of this album is musically, maybe it's better than a lot of the songs deserve. Gypsy Boots, that's a great rocker, but gee whiz, how many bands had the word gypsy? She's on Fire. It's got great dirty slide acoustic guitar, very bluesy. The Hop, that's okay, little rocker at the end, and also The Darkness, which is a pretty solid track. So this is a really dark album. If you look at the lyrics, I think they were going through a very dark phase in their careers. The lyrics cover drug addiction, relationships gone bad. And I think the Done with Mirrors, it's very obviously, there's a drug reference. And also there's a double context that, Done with Mirrors, they're looking at themselves, where we are, what we're going to be doing moving forward. So it's an end of an era album, probably out of step with the times, because when you're comparing it to the albums that were released in 1985, like Invasion of Your Privacy, Rat, the Bow Hill production, and you compare it to this, it's like apples and oranges. It's completely different. But look, I really groove on this album, and I'd give it a pretty solid 7.5. And one more thing, this Done with Mirrors in reverse, that's ridiculous. Could you imagine if you were a 15-year-old, you go to your Walmart and you look at the album and look at the song titles and you can't read a thing, you'd go on to the next album, wouldn't you? If you go to Motley Crue or Rat. I think that the Geffen marketing, they were probably doing some stuff with some mirrors. Anyway, 7.5 for me.
Thanks, Peter. And Martin, last but not least.
Okay, let me just go over just a few things I don't think have been said yet. So Ted Templeman says that we recorded this in Berkeley at Fantasy Studios because he was trying to keep them away from scoring drugs. That was the quote. And he says he was unfamiliar with the studio and didn't think he got a very good drum sound for Joe. And I guess he was unfamiliar with the mics and stuff like that. As Andee says, but very, very clearly to make the point, this is the last album before there are the outside songwriters. So this is just them doing it. What else? So Joey Kramer, I think you might have said this quote, maybe not, but that it felt like we never got to finish it is the way he put it, right? So the thing to mention about these songs and Andee, as you say, underwritten, Aerosmith's big with really, really working hard on their songwriting. And they also are a band that actually has a lot of rejected songs before they come out with an album. At least in later years, they used to have a lot of songs to choose from and then put it out. So there's a lot of things that they go through. I mean, they seem like the laziest guys in the world sometime, but there is this process where they actually do work really hard on the songs. And that's why they're great, because they wrote amazing songs. So on here, and by the way, my version of this album wasn't 35 minutes. It was 30 minutes, right? Because I bought the vinyl and it doesn't have Darkness. So there's like 4 songs on each side. None of them are very long. This is a really short album. So if you're going to turn in a short album, they better be amazing, amazing songs. And I guess they kind of aren't, right? That's sort of the point to this. My main complaint, though, like right off the bat, Let the Music Do the Talking on Joe's album is just like that song explodes out of the gate. It sounds like desert tanks, rolling through the Sahara, right? And then it stays absolutely groovy and just a juggernaut, and then it just explodes at the chorus, right? This starts okay, and then it gets to the verse, and Joe Joey, for some crazy reason, starts playing 4 on the floor, which I hate. It almost never works. So he's got bass drum on 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the song like loses the energy that it had, which was not even matching any of the energy on the original. And then the chorus, he stops doing the 4 on the floor, but because there's no real change to the arrangement or anything, it doesn't go back up even. I mean, it just kind of stays at this floundering around Aerosmith rock and rolly version where the original is epic. The original is incredible. The way it was done on that. And there's a whole bunch of other great songs on that too. And I agree, man. Imagine, Ryan, like you say, the fantasy of having Steven Tyler sing on that record. Wow. That would have been really cool, right? Ted Templeman's production on this, I mean, I find it pretty decent. But I think, you never, later as a fan, you would never say, oh, give me more ear candy. But at this point, you're almost fatigued because there's no ear candy, right? There's just not enough ear candy, right? Not enough weirdness to it. And I was playing this on Spotify and I had to go back because I noticed in Sheila, I go, there's a riff in here I've heard before. It's the riff at the end of 3 Mile Smile, the geometric that sort of thing comes back. So I had to go back to Night in the Ruts and play it. And I'm playing it and going, wow, this sounds glorious compared to what I've just been listening to on Done With Mirrors. Like everything sounds really great on Night in the Ruts, right? So I always kind of had that problem with it. So it's always been a little bit of an ear fatiguing problem, but also at the same time, I remember as a what would I have been at that time? 22, I guess. Getting it and being like kind of like pleased that it was raw and pretty heavy. I liked Rock in a Hard Place more, and I love Night in the Ruts. Night in the Ruts is probably my second favorite Aerosmith album after Rocks. And Rock in a Hard Place is great. So this was a bit of a letdown, but still I was happy that it was heavy. In terms of my favorite songs on here, I really love The Hop. I think The Hop is great. With that classic line, kicking ass with the boys from Aerosmith, that's in there. And so that's cool. I don't like the chords in Gypsy Boots. It's kind of a fast one, and I agree with the idea. I don't want to hear Gypsy in a title. Reason the Dog is amazing. I love, Andy, how you pointed that out with sort of the melancholy. It has a bit of a Zeppelin vibe to me, but yet it's poppy and not even one of the heavier ones, but I just really like it a lot. I think the chords are really sophisticated in it. My Fist Your Face is pretty cool. Shame on You, no disrespect to Peter and Andee, I think. I don't like that one very much. I don't like the Aerosmith funky ones. I never did. Last Child's my least favorite song on Rocks. So those kinds of songs I've never been crazy about. She's on Fire is great. Love the slinky slidey, electric slide. And that Darkness was pretty cool, which I only discovered later. But that is the one that is a little proggy and it's got some piano. It's a little bit different. It doesn't fit the rest of the album. But yeah, overall, I just think it's a commendable enough album. And I love, Andy, when you said that thing about, you don't have to share this with anybody. It's the underground Aerosmith album. It's their punk rock album, right? And you'll never hear any of this on the radio. So that's really kind of cool about it as well. You can go back to it. You're never sick of it. So that's cool. I think I would give this record, I want to give it a 7.5, but I really get mad at albums that are too short. So I'm going to have to go 7 on it because it just is too short. So there you go.
Hey.
Awesome. Good job, everybody. Cool. Our average calculator today is telling us that we gave Done With Mirrors a 7.2.
There you go.
7.2. Awesome. Any final thoughts?
Show a few more of the graphics here. There you go.
Was that like a stock image? It looks like something that would have been like just a stock image they grabbed. Really
I remember a story. I don't know where this came from, but I remember a story, somebody telling me that's Steven Tyler. But I don't think it is. But it does look a bit like him. It does kind of look like him a little. You can almost imagine it, right?
See what drugs do to you.
Yeah. Don't do drugs, kids. It's interesting. A couple things that were brought up that I never thought of before. Like Peter brought up. Yeah, let the music do the talking. Just goes off the cliff at the end. It fades right out. They should have let it play a little longer, and they should have done the arrangement that Joe Perry did, where it does that sort of da 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 da. Like it's like they don't want to stop playing it, but they just kind of collapse. And also, what I like is in Joe's solo in Let the Music Do the Talking, how he quotes "Draw the Line" for a second. I thought that was kind of cool. And Andy was absolutely right about "Shame on You" being barely written. There's no chorus there; it just flip flops between those two parts. And I never thought of the Zeppelin comparison before with "The Reason to Dog," but when you've got that synth coming in, it sounds like something from In for the Outdoor. So all very good points brought up.
One last point on let the music do the talking. I don't like the rappy, scat spoken vocal phrasing compared to the Ralph Mormon, the beautiful singing, soaring, awesome vocal melody that he put in the original.
Totally agree there. Yeah, that was the big letdown for me on the album. But you talk about Aerosmith, you got the first 4 albums, which just are amazing to me. Night in the Ruts. Draw the Line, I thought was a little let down. Of course, Rockin' a Hard Place kicked butt, I thought. And then the band gets back together. Then you talk about their post-career. The one album, and Andy briefly brought up the album, I really like Pump. And I think, because if you look at Pump, most of the songwriting was done by the band. Maybe Desmond Child's thrown in here and there. But I thought Pump is their last great album. After that, no. I mean, but I still buy it. We talked about this in the episode yesterday. Aerosmith's one of those bands, no matter what they release, I'll buy it, whether it's good or bad, because they're one of the reasons I like hard rock and metal. But yeah, I think Pump is actually an album that this should have been, if that makes sense.
Yep. Because
then they got their act together, and then they went a little bit more, writing the songs to themselves. I like Monkey on Their Back sounds a lot like the 70s Aerosmith, so yeah, that's my opinion. But I mean, this album is good, but I was happy the band got back together, the originals, but I thought it was a slight letdown.
Yeah, you could have flipped Pump. Yeah, Pump could have followed this album up, and then you could have gone to Permanent Vacation, and because Permanent Vacation's just got a little more smoothness and ear candy and bells and whistles on its way to get a grip, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, looks like Ryan wants to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one more thing. I know a lot of you guys have mentioned Darkness not being on the record, which is really strange with this copy I have, because this is definitely like an 80s pressing of this album. And I do have that song on here. So I'm a little bit...
Where's that from, Ryan?
USA.
Okay, mine's a Canadian. It's definitely not on here.
No, it's not on mine.
No. Wow. Oh, also, 2 more things. I'm really surprised that Aerosmith didn't sue Joe Satriani for Satch Boogie, because Satch Boogie starts almost exactly like the Hop. Almost exactly the same. And I just lost my other thought. Oh, about Joey saying that they didn't get a chance to finish it. But we all know sometimes with Aerosmith, if you don't take the album out of their hands, it'll never come out.
Yeah.
It takes way too long in between albums.
Yeah.
If this album was a hit, they would have loved it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't that always the way? Isn't that always the way? If it went top 10 mega platinum, it's great.
Right.
Awesome. All right. I think that pretty much does it. Why don't we go around and if you have anything to plug, go ahead and plug it. If there's anybody you want to say hi to at home, then say hi to somebody. Joe, do you have anything to plug, or do you want to say hi to anybody?
No, I'm good. I'm just happy to be here once again. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Ryan, how about you?
Yeah. So I've been doing a lot of writing recently, music reviews on my Facebook, Instagram. It's called Ryan's Vinyl Destination. I have a YouTube channel for it too. I'm looking to do some collaborations on there primarily for the video content right now, just because I've been enjoying doing written reviews solo. So obviously, if anybody's interested in doing some collaborations about music of any genres, really just find me on Facebook or message me on YouTube or something. I'd be very interested. Like I said, it's Ryan's Vinyl Destination, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Yeah, I'm writing reviews pretty much every day. Whatever I'm listening to, all vinyl. It's been a lot of fun.
Cool. Peter, how about you?
Yeah, I've got a new YouTube channel called Rock Daydream Nation. Did a really fun chat with some of the Patreons, Reed, Grant, and John, a couple of days ago, ranking the Police top 5. Check it out. But yeah, just check out my YouTube, Rock Daydream Nation.
Nice. Thanks, Peter. Nick. Anybody want to say hi to or anything to plug?
I have maybe it's a plug or a shout out, but I went to the mailbox today, Saturday, and lo and behold, I had this in my mailbox. And I had received the PDF, but I really wanted to, I like the physical hard copy. So I've just been thumbing through it, and it looks fantastic. It's so well put together, unspooled, Tim Derling, so personally autographed. It'll go on the shelf near Carmine Appice and Carmine Appice and Ian McLagan and a few others. I have autographed copies of books, but it's fantastic, and it's worth. If Tim's going to release more, it's worth the purchase just for two things. One, multiple pictures of Tim growing up, which is the best. And the second thing is, I don't want to spoil it, but there's a chapter called True Confessions, a la Gene Simmons song. And I read it and I almost fell over because I realized that Tim is very idiosyncratic, and I'm much the same way. And I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but it's worth the purchase just to read about 2 or 3 pages called True Confessions. So, Tim, we have a couple of things in common.
Thank you, Nick.
We need help.
Nice. Thanks, Nick. Why don't I throw it over to Tim?
Well, wow. Thank you for the kind words. So yeah, just today now I'm hearing some of the U.S. orders are getting through next about the 4th. So Joe, yours should be coming any day now. The response has been great, and fingers crossed we're going to get some more out there, and I will let everybody know when that happens. But oddly enough, the album we're talking about tonight is available on 8-track. I don't have it. It is very, very rare. It's the last known Aerosmith album to come out on 8-track, only through the record clubs, of course. And I'd love to get my hands on a copy of it. And I even think the 8-track, everything's backwards on it.
And you got Tim's Vinyl Confessions or YouTube page?
Yeah, Tim's Vinyl Confessions on YouTube and all the socials. Just did an episode early, as we filmed this earlier today with Mike Ladano from the Brain Train. A lot of you know Mike. We did an episode talking about rare CDs or rare CD pressings we have in our collection, and that was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to talk with all of you that we have these common interests. I really enjoy it. So yeah.
Awesome. Andy, any final thoughts? Anything to plug? Anyone you want to say hi to?
Yeah, we're wrapping up the new KMFDM album. That's in the mixing stage now. It's called Hyena. It'll be out, I don't know, in the coming months. Working with Jason Beeler on his new solo album. We're he's got a lot of songs written, and I've played on 4 of them so far. So we're working on that. Nothing's out yet. I did put out a Sheer Velocity album called Tiny Songs on Bandcamp. That's all instrumental, gonzo guitar music, very small songs, all very short track lengths. What else? Well, I've got a lot of tour dates on the books for this year, but I'm loath to even speak of it because everything is still so weird out there with COVID. And, I've had several tours kind of like rescheduled. But yeah, I've got, if everything goes well, I'll be doing a lot of shows with Blondie and KMFDM this year. So nice. Once I have plane tickets in my hand, I'll announce these things with a little more confidence.
Sweet. When things are cool, are any of those shows in Canada?
I hate to say it, but I don't think we do have any Canadian dates. But I'll let you know. I'm not sure.
Awesome. Thanks. We'd love to see you live.
For sure. I'd love to see some of you guys out there.
Cool. And Martin, how about yourself? Anything to plug?
Well, I knocked off next Tuesday's History in 5 Songs this morning. I did do the, the U.S. response to UK glam is exactly what I called it. So it's about that. Eagerly waiting my David Bowie book coming from Motor Books. That's a $75 US by Motor Books. So it's going to be very, very nice. These are the guys who have designed my best books, which is like the Led Zeppelin, all the albums, all the songs, all those album by album books, the Clash book. So this is really a nice looking book. But that's should be here in about a month or so. And I'm waiting on a very stressful palette of books from the UK, which will have the UFO visual biography in it and the Priest one and the Yes one with the new cover. And then we're doing a second Yes one as well. And yeah, a bunch of other stuff as well. So all that's martinpopoff.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Martin. And for us at the Contrarians, if you want to like and subscribe our channel, you can go ahead and do that. That would be awesome. We'd really appreciate that. We also have our Patreon page. You can subscribe at any tier and join us in these conversations and let us know what you think about these albums. We also have a Ko-Fi. If you don't want to subscribe on a monthly basis and just want to support the show because you're a great individual and you love us talking about music. And we also have our TeePublic. So we got t-shirts on there. And other than that, thanks everybody for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.
All right. This was a blast. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Good
Cheers,
night.
guys.
See you,
All right.
everybody.
See you later.